I didn't know I was being set up until the badge reader turned red that Monday morning. It was one of those crisp autumn days where the air smelled like wet leaves and coffee from the street vendors outside our office tower. I'd arrived early, as usual, juggling my thermos and laptop bag, ready to dive into the quarterly reports. Swipe. Red light. A soft beep of denial. I frowned, tried again. Red again. My heart skipped, just a glitch, right? But through the glass doors, the lobby looked the same, the worn gray carpet with its faint coffee stains, the fake ficus plant drooping in the corner like it had given up on life, the reception desk where Maria usually waved hello. Except today, Maria avoided my eyes, her gaze fixed on her screen. Security appeared almost immediately, 2 guys in ill-fitting uniforms, one with a mustache that looked like it belonged in a 70s cop show. They were polite but firm, like they'd rehearsed this exact scenario in some corporate training video. "Mr. Harlan. HR's expecting you upstairs," the taller one said, his voice low, almost apologetic. They flanked me as we rode the elevator, the silence thick and suffocating. My mind raced. Was this about the late project last week? The client complaint I'd handled? No, it felt bigger. Wrong. In the HR conference room. Sterile white walls, a long table with a single wilting orchid in the center, they didn't waste time. Sandra, the HR director, sat there with her tablet and a stack of papers, her expression a mask of professional sympathy. Beside her was Tom from legal, adjusting his tie like he'd rather be anywhere else. They slid a printed email across the table to me. My name was in the sender field. My company email address. The tone was sharp, accusatory, my words, or so it seemed. But I'd never written it. The email was addressed to our biggest client, a Fortune 500 firm we'd been courting for years. It ripped into them, accusations of incompetence in their procurement process, hints that we were overbilling them by inflating hours, and a veiled threat about collecting documentation in case things needed to be escalated to regulators. It was career suicide, the kind of thing that could tank not just my job but the entire account. Sent at 2:14 a.m. from my account. I stared at it, my mouth dry. "This isn't me," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I didn't send this." Sandra nodded, her lips pressed thin. "We understand this is upsetting, Alex. But the email traces back to your credentials. The client received it directly, they're furious. They've already threatened to pull the contract." Tom chimed in about digital forensics, how the IP matched our office network. I kept repeating, "That's not me," like a broken record, but their decision was etched in stone. "Unfortunately," Sandra said, echoing every bad breakup line ever, "the damage is done. We have to let you go." By noon, my access was revoked, email, intranet, everything. I packed my desk under the watchful eyes of security, the office humming with awkward silence. Colleagues averted their gazes, whispers followed me like shadows. By 3 p.m. my Slack was deleted, all those group chats and memes vanished. By the end of the day, I was unemployed, standing on the sidewalk with a cardboard box of personal effects, a photo of my dog, a half-dead succulent, some notebooks. The autumn wind whipped around me, carrying the distant honk of traffic. I felt numb, like I'd been punched in the gut and couldn't catch my breath. The first week was a blur of shock and self-doubt. I paced my small apartment, replaying every interaction, every late night at the office. Had I pissed someone off? Was it a hack? I applied for unemployment, updated my LinkedIn with a vague, exploring new opportunities post, and fielded calls from confused friends. Wrongful termination, my sister asked over the phone. Sue them. But I didn't have the energy. Not yet. It wasn't until the anger settled in, cold, calculated, like ice forming over a lake, that I started piecing it together. I was scrolling job boards when an email popped up from a former colleague. Heard Evan got the promotion. Congrats to him, I guess. Evan. The name hit like a brick. Evan Thompson, 2 desks over from me in our open plan office. Same role as senior analyst, same team under Mark's management, same promotion track to team lead. The only difference? I consistently outperformed him, higher metrics, better client feedback, the one who stayed late to crunch numbers while he clocked out at 5. Evan had always been off. He smiled too hard, those forced grins that never reached his eyes, revealing too perfect teeth. He asked just a few too many questions about my workflow. Hey, Alex, how do you handle those pivot tables so fast? Or, mind if I peek at your dashboard setup? He lingered when I logged out, pretending to tie his shoe or grab a forgotten pen. I'd brushed it off as awkward ambition, maybe even mentored him a bit. But now, 2 days after my firing, Evan slid into my role. The promotion announcement came via company newsletter, his photo beaming, caption about internal talent rising. That's when the sadness evaporated. I stopped wallowing. I started planning. Revenge? Not the explosive kind from movies, with shouting matches or public takedowns. No, I wanted something surgical, undeniable. I didn't confront him, no angry texts, no showing up at the office. I didn't post rants on Glassdoor or threaten lawsuits that could backfire. Instead, I went quiet. Methodical. First, I reviewed everything I had. Luckily, I'd always been paranoid about backups, personal habits from college days when a hard drive crash lost a thesis. I dug into my external drive, old emails, project files, chat logs, timestamps from collaborative docs. Patterns emerged that I'd ignored before. Evan had requested temporary access to my account the week prior, citing coverage while you're on that client call. IT approved it routinely. There was the ticket, buried in my archived inbox. Why hadn't I questioned it? Hindsight burned. But I needed more. Through a lawyer friend from law school, Rachel, who specialized in employment cases, I framed a formal request for server logs as part of a potential wrongful termination inquiry. No big threats, just a polite letter on letterhead. The company complied, probably to avoid escalation. The logs arrived via secure email 2 weeks later, raw data, IP addresses, timestamps. They didn't lie. The incriminating email was sent from my account, sure, but traced to Evan's workstation MAC address. At 2:13 a.m., his badge scanned into the building, security footage timestamps matched, though I didn't have video yet. At 2:14 a.m., the email fired off. At 2:15 a.m., logout from his machine. It was blatant, almost sloppy. Had he assumed no one would dig this deep? Arrogance, maybe. Or desperation. I sat with this evidence for days, printing it out, organizing it into folders. My apartment became a war room, sticky notes on walls, timelines sketched on legal pads. But I didn't rush to HR. They'd already shown their colors, quick to fire, slow to admit fault. No, I waited for the right moment. In the meantime, I rebuilt. Job hunted aggressively, networked on LinkedIn, took freelance gigs to pay bills. Landed interviews, but the "why did you leave your last job?" question was a minefield. Misunderstanding, I'd say, keeping it vague. 3 months ticked by. I'd hear updates through the grapevine, Evan thriving in my old role, schmoozing clients, even poaching some of my old projects. It fueled me. Then, the opportunity struck, the company landed a massive regulatory audit. Our industry, financial consulting, was under scrutiny after a sector-wide scandal. Regulators demanded documentation for every client interaction, especially internal comms, to ensure no fraud or improprieties. The email about overbilling? It would be a red flag if uncovered. I didn't tip my hand to HR. Instead, I submitted my evidence packet directly to the compliance team, anonymous at first, via a burner email, then followed up with Rachel's firm as counsel. Clean, organized, logs, timestamps, access requests, even a timeline infographic I mocked up in Canva. No accusations, just facts. Potential irregularity in employee communications, the cover letter read. Impossible to ignore amid an audit. The fallout was swift, though I watched from afar. Within a week, whispers reached me. The company reopened my case, pulling in IT forensics experts. Evan was called in for questioning, multiple times, according to a sympathetic ex-colleague who texted updates. He denied it, of course, but the logs were ironclad. Within 2 weeks, suspension pending investigation. The office buzzed with rumors, productivity tanked as paranoia set in. Within a month, he was fired. Officially, for falsifying records, impersonating another employee, and exposing the company to legal and regulatory risk. The audit flagged the fake email as a potential compliance breach, forcing their hand. They couldn't sweep it under the rug. Then came the call from Sandra. Alex, we've reviewed everything. This was a grave error on our part. We'd like to offer your position back, with back pay. Her voice was laced with corporate contrition, probably scripted by legal. I paused, letting the silence stretch. No thanks, I said finally. By then, I'd accepted a better gig at a competitor, higher salary, remote options, a team that valued integrity over quick fixes. Part of the deal. A quiet settlement from my old company. 6 figures, plus a written acknowledgement of wrongful termination, sealed but useful for my records. The last I heard about Evan, through LinkedIn stalks and mutual connections, he was bouncing between temp jobs, struggling to explain that termination for cause on his resume. Interviews dried up, recruiters ghosted. His profile picture still showed that too-hard smile, but the posts were desperate, open to opportunities in analytics. Funny thing about revenge. I'd imagined it loud, triumphant, a mic drop moment. But it wasn't. It felt quiet, clean, like restoring balance to a skewed scale. No fireworks, just the satisfaction of truth prevailing. And in the end, that was more than enough. Depth. I leaned back in my chair that evening, the settlement check deposited, my new job's offer letter framed on my desk like a trophy. But let's rewind a bit. There were moments in those 3 months that tested me, made the revenge sweeter. After getting the logs, I couldn't sleep. Nightmares of red badge readers, endless HR meetings. I joined a support group for wrongfully terminated employees online, anonymously, of course. Stories poured in, backstabbing colleagues, corporate cover-ups. It fueled my resolve, but also humanized Evan. Was he just insecure? A product of cutthroat culture? Nah, I shook it off. Actions have consequences. Job hunting was brutal. One interview at a startup, tell us about your last role. I danced around it, but the interviewer pressed. Heard there was drama. Word spreads in our industry. I lost that one, but it lit a fire. I upskilled, online courses in data forensics, cybersecurity basics. Ironically, it made me better at my craft. When the audit hit, it was front-page news in trade journals. Our company scrambled, mandatory overtime, stress levels skyrocketing. I pictured Evan sweating in his cubicle, deleting files frantically. My submission? Meticulous. I included metadata from shared drives showing he'd accessed my files post-access grant, subtle overreaches. Post-firing, Evan tried damage control. A mutual friend mentioned he badmouthed me at a happy hour. Alex was sloppy, probably sent it drunk. It backfired when others defended me. Karma's whisper. Now, at my new firm, I mentor juniors on ethics. Watch your back, I say lightly, but document everything. The settlement funded a vacation, beach, no emails. Balance restored.